Now, if you're a perfectionist, you've probably tricked yourself into believing that productivity is about maximizing every minute or optimizing all the inputs and outputs of your work. Essentially, you think that every minute or every data point should be accounted for in some way. That progress must always happen inside these intentional time blocks that you've designed. At least I have this thought quite often that if I just am organized and disciplined enough, those will be the best conditions for me to be brilliant at something. Alas, it doesn't really work that way. If only life was that predictable, right? I know it's a satisfying thought. That's why we think about it so much as perfectionists. But actually, we really can't be that rigid as creatives. I'm from Finland originally, and there's this Finnish saying called ei kukko käskien laula, which means that the rooster doesn't crow on demand, which is quite funny. Maybe there's an English equivalent to it, I don't really know. But I feel like this encapsulates the idea really well about doing good creative work. It's the same thing that we just can't sit down and expect ourselves to always perform our best on schedule and be creative on schedule. Of course, we want it to come on schedule, and most often it will, but my point is more that it will never come if we force it. Your best ideas won't come when you're staring at a blank page. Your best ideas will come when you create the right conditions for it. Conditions that make the effort you put in your work feel effortless, and most often than not also look effortless to others. So in this video, I thought that we could go through these ideas of what these favorable conditions could look like for creative professionals like us. And I'd like to introduce a couple of pieces of European cultural wisdom that I really like, that really backs this idea up, I guess, and makes them sound cooler as well. And then lastly, we'll go over how you can apply this to your work weeks. So I'm Elle, and I'm a musicologist living my dream life in Paris currently, and I help six-figure creatives move from perfectionism to effortless progress. And the way I think of perfectionism, at least and the tendencies that go with it, at least in my world, I have a tendency to think that I can and I should optimize and organize all the items and data points and minutes of my life. I feel that life is so precious that I don't want to waste it. I want to use it to the best I can. We all want to do that, but if we think too rigidly about this, it becomes quite intense. It can be even detrimental to our productivity, which it is. So recently I've been trying to find more ways to balance this out. Find ways where I can be creative, unleash the side of my creativity that doesn't really need any rules, that thinks outside the box, as they say, while also preserving this other side of my personality that cares about the little details that make something a quality item. So lately I've been observing myself a bit more about what are the actual circumstances where I have the aha moments that I really need in terms of my creativity and all the projects that I have at hand, all the problems that I have to solve in my life. And the recurring key moments when I make that progress is, surprise, surprise, when I'm resting in one way or another. So often it's when I'm walking somewhere. It's ridiculously simple, but literally walking is perfect for productivity often. Or when I've taken a nap or I'm just daydreaming, that's sometimes when your mind opens up for solutions. Or when I've gotten a good night's sleep and then I wake up and bam, I have a solution for something. It feels always so strange, but it feels mostly effortless, which is what we want. Then some other instances is when I'm just doing other mundane tasks, something that goes quite automatically, like cooking or ironing clothes or brushing my teeth, or often when I'm sitting on the toilet too. So I've realized that creativity truly flourishes when you're relaxed, not straining and pushing forward to find the thing you're looking for. I'm guessing it has something to do with brain waves or your brain states or something. I'm not that familiar with science, so You can tell me in the comments what it's actually all about, but that's what I've heard about, at least, that your brain goes into a different kind of state when you're relaxed or bored, and then you start broadening. I think it's called the broaden and build theory, where your mind opens up for the solutions. So I think this is the reframe that I've been looking for, at least for myself in my work. That being bored or just phased out and calm doing mundane tasks, that's not wasted time. It's actually fertile ground for breakthroughs. Because the harder you try to force doing something brilliant, producing something that has meaning, the further it actually runs from you. So actually, these really mundane moments that we have all the time, they're not pointless moments. They're very important. They're an important part of the weave of a successful and a quite blissful life too. So this is where we come to the blissful old European concepts of being a calm and rested person. Here are the 5 concepts that I like. The first one is the Italian passeggiata. I love that word. It sounds so cool, but it's just a fancier way of saying an evening stroll that, for example, Italian families take after eating dinner. The second one is il dolce far niente, which means the sweetness of doing nothing. Imagine that. Doing nothing can also be an activity, and that it is a sweet moment of just pure joy, of enjoying existence. The third one is the Spanish word siesta, which is just a nap, basically a midday nap maybe. Sometimes they actually take their siestas very late as well, as far as I've heard and understood, because they eat so late, so also their siesta can be quite late. But in any case, I just love naps. Even 5 minutes actually can make a huge difference. Just today actually, I took a 7-minute nap, and I was off, to get some groceries. And sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes it's a bit more, but yeah, it's just this tool actually. I think of it as a tool in my toolbox during my days, that if I actually really feel that the sleep is coming, why not just try to sleep for 5 minutes and maybe I'll be fine after that? And often it is that way. The fourth concept is from what the French call the grasse matinée. The direct translation is a greasy morning, but it's not greasy in a bad way. So it means that you're sleeping in. There's actually a quite fun wordplay there, because you could also say grâce in terms of grace, that you give yourself grace in the morning to sleep a bit more. We all know how important it is to have some slow mornings sometimes, even if we wouldn't like to sleep that late, but at least that we have the sensation of just having all the time in the world in the morning to wake up in a slow manner. The last concept is what the French call the flâneur. It's a noun, in the feminine form flâneuse, I guess, and the verb associated is flâner, and it means that you're wandering around in a city usually without really any sense of direction, or maybe you have a sense of direction, but it's more aimless. You're just wandering about, or if you have a direction where you're going, what's it called, an end goal somewhere, you really take your time and enjoy looking at the city space, and usually it's associated to this that you wear some reasonably stylish clothes and reasonably comfortable shoes as well. But it's about observing everything that's around you, all the people around you, the buildings, and maybe the nature. So there's an actual word for a person like that who does that sort of wandering. I think it's a very 19th century concept actually from France. It would be interesting to look into the history of the word a bit more. But the important point for us now is that how can we apply these concepts in our own creative lives? The big point that I'm trying to get at here is that these cultures have long built in these sort of pauses in their lives, and that they're not labeled as laziness, but as being something very necessary for living a good life. That those moments are actually creative fuel for people. And I just think that just the very fact that they have named these sort of activities and that they've become a concept, really. It's not just the name, but the whole cultural associations that are associated to it. It's validating that it is necessary, that it's not just nice to have, that it's an essential part of life. So something that I have come to realize when thinking about all these concepts is that you need a routine. Of course we need a routine. We can't just, wander around all the time. But the routine has to be flexible. It has to have space for the good ideas to emerge. Because most often than not, your best ideas won't come in a rush. They'll come when you have space for it. And this is just such a counterintuitive and interesting concept. And I've actually built a custom GPT for you that you can check out, that can really help you unblock these sort of perfectionistic thoughts that we have and workshop these more effortless ways of working in your creative endeavors and in your business. So check it out below if you find it interesting. There's no opt-in required or anything. But in terms of incorporating these moments of resting in our own lives, of course we can time block them. It is always an option, and it is a good option actually, but it's not necessary. At least for me, it just already helps that I know these concepts exist and that I keep them on the back of my mind, that I can always resort to them. If I feel that I'm swamped or that I just can't progress anymore, I would love to just finish the project, but I can't keep, it's getting slower and slower. So usually it's often better to cut the stint and go out and take a walk and then come back and you'll be fine. But it's sometimes so hard to do because you really want to, you want to finish the thing. This is the thing. Tell me in the comments if you struggle with this too, because sometimes I feel alone with it. Another thing that I haven't really yet incorporated enough is that when I time block days, it's good to leave in some room between the blocks, because I have a tendency to just, time block every single minute like this, even though you should always leave, 5 to 10 minutes in between if you need to go to the toilet, for example. A crazy idea. That's something that often I can run myself down just because of the fact that I've made the schedule too tight. We've all been there, so it'll always be a struggle, but of course we can always, make some efforts to be better at it, to consciously always leave some breaks in between everything, not squish in everything in it's about being a time optimist, I guess. And I'm definitely fallen victim to that many times and all the time. So especially in your case, when you have a 6-figure business, maybe you have a feeling that if you've assigned yourself some time to work on your business, you want to make as much time as possible in that time frame. So you may have a feeling that you can't really leave the work if you haven't fulfilled all the time that you've assigned, even though you would be feeling very drained for some reason. But knowing this, how much resting can benefit our productivity, I guess it's just a skill to actually just cut the loop you're in with the work, take a break, and continue in 5 to 15 minutes. Even just that, like a 10-minute walk around the block, can help. These are just the simplest things ever, I know, but why do we always forget that it's an option? We just want to push through and use every single second and minute we have. And the truth is that usually nothing really is that urgent or important that it couldn't wait another 15 minutes or even 30 minutes or a whole day. You can just write off a whole day if you want to, especially if you have your own business. But we often just forget that it's an option, right? So I guess in the end, it's a question of believing you can do that. This really is the crux of the matter. The paradox in optimization. Because we need to optimize, but not too much. It's always the balance. Because the true optimization, especially in time and energy management, comes from knowing when to pause. True optimization comes from knowing when to pause. It means that we have to pause, but I guess it's more about optimizing when we do the pause. And that can make or break the whole situation. That can have a huge ROI in the long term if you master that skill. Okay, so just to wrap this up now, is that I think the underlying key idea here is that when you're forcing your ideas, forcing yourself to work a bit too long stints that are too long, it's a part of having a scarcity mindset. You think your resources, your energy is scarce, so you try to fit it all in. Whereas if you rest enough, you feel that you have the liberty to take a slight pause whenever. That's an abundance mindset. You believe that you can recharge the energy whenever, wherever. And just imagine that if you adopt this more abundant mindset in terms of your own creativity and energy, you can create with so much more joy. That's just the best outcome you could ever have, right? And that's what makes your work sustainable. That's how you can reach for excellence, but also be sustainable with it. You don't have to grind your soul down. You can just decide not to. No matter what the circumstance is, no matter how constrained you feel, you can make it happen. Especially if it's your own business, there's always levers you can pull to make the situation better. So yeah, but more on that in some future videos. But now, if you are this sort of a creative who's ready to work less and create better, I'd love to work with you to really turn this perfectionism and harness the best parts of it and turn it into this rocket fuel for growth. So feel free to contact me and I'll see you in the next video. Bisous!